So we ran some tests on there on his 1550 watt, and it came up with about, the battery was still on 13.1 volts. It was drawing about 135 amps, 130 to 135 amps out of his system to run that 1550 watt air fryer. So I thought, that's interesting. So I said to Dan, that's strange, I've got a 1550 watt air fryer at home. Exactly the same power consumption as Dan's. And I said, when I run it, I can't run it on my system because my battery can't, it's got not enough continuous discharge to run it because it overheats. I've tried in the past and it overheats. And the problem is, if it overheats too much, then the BMS will shut down on your iTech World 120X battery. So what I did is I only ran it for a short period, and it's normally 158, 160, sometimes I've seen as high as 170 amps draw. So I switched it off. So the only way for me to run my bigger air fryer is if I also use my Honda generator and use the power assist feature on the inverter. Now the inverter will run that air fryer no problems at all. It'll run it no problems at all. Now in regards to inverter, as I mentioned, I've got the 2080, which is a 12 volt 2000 VA, which is 1600 watt inverter, and the 80 stands for, it's a 80 amp electric charger. Although it'll charge up to 80 amps, but I can program it to charge at a maximum 50 amps like I have right now on here, because that's the recommended maximum charge rate for the iTech World 120X battery is 50 amps. So that's what I got it set at, 50 amps. So I said to, and Dan asked me, do you have the air fryer in the car? And unfortunately I didn't have it with me because I use it at home. It's brilliant to cook in, so it always gets used at home. I only ever take it with me if I go somewhere that's quiet and I'm base camp somewhere for a while, and I can take my generator and then I'll take it with me. Otherwise I usually just take this little 1000 watt air fryer, which runs off it no problems at all. But I've never really taken much notice of what the volts are on the battery, and I cannot remember what this draws, because to be frank guys, it's been a little while since I have actually used an air fryer inside the back of my vehicle. My last few camping trips that I've been on, I've basically had powered sites, and I was able to run all these components with electricity plugged into my input, that's AC input that's on the side of my vehicle. So it's set up like a caravan as such, you could say. So by the way guys, I'm filming this is going up live on YouTube. I think it's going live to YouTube, but I'm recording it as well. So if this doesn't work on YouTube, then you'll be able to watch an edited version of this very soon. So, but then I said to Dan, well hang on, 1550 watt, well that's the same as mine. Let's try it on my vehicle, because I want to see what it produces on my vehicle. So you can remember, on the Kedron Caravan, alright, spitting image, everything's exactly the same, except he's got the 2400 inverter in his Multi Plus, and I've got a 1600 watt inverter on me Multi Plus. Okay, so both Multi Pluses. And the other only difference, I've got the iTech World 120X battery. It's got the PowerPool Australia Scout 280 amp battery. Okay, 12 volt battery, right? 280 amps, the capacity of the battery. How awesome is that? 280 amps. That would go so well in this vehicle, wouldn't it? And I had no problems running my big air fryer then. I don't think I'd even need to carry a solar panel with me with something like that. I'm pretty sure I would not need a solar panel. So we brought it over, we plugged it in here, and I was getting really excited. I was really keen to see what numbers this draw. Turned it on, 160 amps. 158 to 160 amps. And the battery voltage, I noticed, dropped down to 12.1 or 12.2? I'd have to go back into settings and check. I think, no, it was 12.2 if I remember right. That's right, it was 12.2. It was about 12.23 if you want to be exact. I remember now, it was 12.23. So, now when we ran this test on his Kedron Caravan, it was, the battery voltage was 13.1. So 13.1. So it still had almost extra 1 volt. And that's why the draw, okay, the consumption coming out of the battery, the amperage draw out of the battery was only around 130 amps out of his Caravan, and it was about 160 on this because of that 1 volt battery difference. So interesting. So then I thought, you know what would be really interesting test, Dan? Said, yeah, it's that. Let's try your 1550 watt air fryer in your Land Cruiser 200. Now remember, the Land Cruiser 200 has got the spitting image exactly what is inside here. He uses the same components. Everything's the same. Pretty much the same battery thickness. Pretty much it's the same layout of what I've got here. And he even uses the Egon DC hub that Andrew St. Pierre White has made with Heinz down in Perth to Pro, somewhere down in Perth there. If you're lucky enough to live in Perth, you can walk into a store and buy one of these Egon DC hubs. Otherwise, they're pretty much available worldwide. You just order them on their website and they'll post anywhere around the world. I know that because Off the Track family, if you're watching this, I know you purchased one of these Egon DC hubs through Perth to Pro, and they posted to you. So I think you're in Sweden, Switzerland, one of those two countries. I'm not too sure. It could even be a different country. I don't know. I'm not too sure where they're from, but I know they're in Europe somewhere. And I've been helping them out with their Victron gear setup, and their setup is pretty much just about just really sweet. They've still got a couple of little unusual issues that I've never had with mine. So it's more of a learning curve because they're using Victron batteries and they're using a Lynx BMS, which is different to what I've used, and I've never tried them before. So I had to read the manual, quite a few manuals, to find out exactly the programming, parameters, etc. and so on. And in the end, there was very little we had to program because the Victron Lynx BMSs are, yeah, quite amazing. It's basically plug in and forget just about. But, whew, lot of money. Do yourself a favour and go check out, do a search for the Victron Lynx BMS and see how much they cost. Oh boy, what crazy, man. So, yeah, and what that's for is the Victron lithium batteries don't include a BMS built into them. Some of them do. There's some new ones coming out now that do, but some of them don't. But we're kind of going off a bit track of what this video is about. Although, are we? We're still talking about lithium batteries, aren't we? So we took it over to Dan's vehicle. Now, up until this point, what I've got here, what I just explained then, is all on video. So if you go and watch Dan's, I did a video about a week ago on Dan's Land Cruiser 200, putting the Victron to test. If you'll search for the thumbnail, it's got a big 370 amp discharge with a question mark. So go watch that. And what I've explained now is towards the end. But this bit of information I got now, we did not film this. It was getting late, we were getting a bit tired. The battery on the camera was almost flat, so it was just going to turn off at any moment. So unfortunately I was not able to film this bit here. So this is extra info added to that video. So we got the 1550 1550 watt, which is a Ninja air fryer. Plugged it in his vehicle. Remember, exact same setup as mine. The only difference is he's got the Scout 280 amp hour 12 volt battery with a continuous discharge of 250 amps, and I've got the iTech World 120X battery. That is the only difference. So we plugged it in, turned it on, and his voltage, now remember my voltage was 12.23, and when we ran the test on his voltage only ran down, we only came down to about 12.85 or 12, I think it was 12.87. Guys, I can actually show you right here. Dan sent me, here it is. Okay, so right here guys, have a look here. This is the info that Dan sent to me. I can hit the play button, and there we go, we hit the play button. That is what, so you can see the battery voltage, 12.84, drawing 147 amps. Alright, you can see the difference there. Okay, just watch that, 12.87, consistent 12.87. It held that consistently. And 147 amps. So the same one, the same air fryer, with the exact same setup as mine. The only difference is the battery. Okay, both 12 volt batteries. And you can see how much less effort it took to power that, to make those AC volts. And the big thing is there, it's that voltage. His was running 12.87, mine is 12.23. Hence why mine was using more amps to produce the same energy, because the less the amps are, the volts are, the lesser the volts are, the lower the volts are I should say, the more energy it's going to take to make that same energy AC energy. Okay, it's the same. So that's why you'll see some setups now that are 48 volts, particularly in the yachting industry. You'll find majority of them are using your Victron gear and they got 48 volt systems. Because now let's say for example mine is 160 amps. If I got a 24 volt system, that'll drop it down to 80 amps draw. If I've got a 48 volt system, that'll drop it down to 40 volts, 40 amps, roughly 40 amps. Guys, I'm getting ahead of myself. I've got to concentrate, think. So it's 40 amps. So you can see the higher the voltage, okay, the less the amps are that it requires to produce that energy. The lower the voltage, the more amps that it requires to produce the energy. So because the iTech World 120X, in my opinion, appears to have, it's not, well, obviously it's nowhere near the quality of the 12 volt Scout 280 amp battery. And to be hindsight, guys, the price difference will reflect that. Okay, there's quite a fair bit of price difference. Although, if you purchase one of these at recommended retail price, there's not that much of a price difference. Alright, recommended retail price on these is way overpriced. I would never buy one of these batteries for any more than $800. I think that's all they're worth. Occasionally you will see them on special for that price, but I wouldn't buy one anymore anyway. This would be the first and last of this particular brand battery or any of their devices I will ever purchase again, because they're not up to the task for what I want to do. They're not up to the task. So that's really interesting. So for those who are watching that video and you watch right through to the end, and we didn't really have, we were a little bit confused, to be honest. We kind of suspected it was to do with the batteries and the internals of the batteries, which appears that's to be the case. So remember, it's exactly the same setup that I've got in here. Now guys, I may have an opportunity to test 3 lithium batteries soon, very soon, and I'm going to test them in this vehicle. And this one's going to be the one will be included in the test, and I've got another 2 batteries that might be arriving soon for testing purposes, that I'm going to run tests and compare and run different loads on, and I'm going to record the figures, and that's going to make a really interesting video. So I cannot wait until I get onto those tests. Now it's still in the planning stages, so I won't announce anything more about it. Just one day a video will pop up comparing 3 lithium batteries in the same system. So hopefully it won't be too far away. Right, now I asked Dan the other day if he could find something that's around the 1000 watt load to run on in his Land Cruiser 200, remember, with the exact same setup that I've got in my vehicle. And he looked around, and the best he could find was something that was 850 watts. Because I want to see at what stage does the voltage start to drop considerably before it starts to really affect the efficiency in producing the 240 volts energy. So I want to run some tests, on some ongoing tests, and this is part of it. We're going to start on it right now. We're about to start, and I haven't run this before, as I mentioned. We're going to run on a test here. So Dan sent me the info on, just going to bring it up here. Okay, here it is here. So this is a 850 watt load on his system. So as you can see, take notice the voltage, 13.08 volts. I hit play again. Wait, just wait till it starts up. Once it starts up, here it is. Okay. 13.1 volts. Okay, constantly 13.1 volts. 63.5 amps, 835 watt load. Alright, now I wish I could find something that's 850 watt load, and I could have tested it exactly, but unfortunately the closest I could find right now is me 1000 watt in air fryer. So it's not a perfect test, but it's going to give you some ideas. But it's still, I'm curious to see what the voltage is at 1000 amps. Now he did send me another one here. Okay, this other one I think is when we, what's this one for? Okay, that's when he's, alright, that's when he's run that. Okay, no, that's fine. Alright, so, let's turn this on. So we're going to put 1000 watt load in this now. And see what sort of energy, what the voltage is. Right now the voltage is on 13.2. So, here we go. 200 degrees Celsius, and we're going on. Okay, voltage is now 12.6 volts. So we've got 12.6 volts, 96 amps coming out of the battery. Okay, so 12. Here we are, 12.55 volts, 12.54, it's actually going down, 12.53, interesting, it's actually going down, 12.52, so that's interesting, because on Dan's system it's sustained. Once it got those voltages, it sustained those voltages, it never went down, and now we're down to 12.5 volts. So it's actually going down. The battery temperature is still at 26 degrees Celsius, as there's no major heat issues there as yet. It's gone up to 27 degrees Celsius. We've got a load on it about 94.8 amps. So, and now it's 12.49. So you could roughly say 12.5 volts with a 1000 watt load on that battery. So we'll just, hang on, let me turn that off. We'll just turn that off now. So, interesting. Actually, let's run it a bit longer. There we go, let's run it a bit longer so we get an accurate test. So if you're watching this, Dan, if you can find something that's rated at 1000 watts, I'd love to see what the specs are on that load of 1000 watts. But remember, he did send me one with the 850 watts, and you saw what the figures were then. It had, what's it, 13.1 volts, and was it 65 amps, thereabouts. So add an extra 150 amps to that, and it'll be really interesting to see what, in fact I'll send Dan a message after this and see what he says. So we're now at 12.48 volts and minus 94. So we're looking at 12.48 volts there. Okay, so let's turn that back up and see. Now I see the battery's at 32 degrees Celsius, it's starting to climb. And we're now at 13.04 volts, 13.05, 13.06. So it's slowly building up the voltage, 13.07. So, yeah. Now when I was running the 1550 watt load on this, the battery voltage was down to 12.23. Remember that, 12.23. Okay, remember that. Whereas when we're running the 1550 watt load on Dan's Land Cruiser 200, the voltage was, what was about 12.9, thereabouts. So big difference, and that's where the big energy draw difference is. Now Dan, when he builds these batteries, he uses very thick components that will handle a lot more amps than what it's rated at. In fact, if you watched that video, I hope the focusing's alright here. If you watch that video, if you haven't, it's worthwhile going to watch it. Watch that video that I filmed on Dan's Land Cruiser 200 with the discharge test and his Kedron caravan, and check that out. And actually I forgot what I was going to say, what we were talking about. Oh boy, watch that video. Why watch that video? Oh yeah, I remember now. In fact, I'm going to edit this bit out in case anyone is watching this live. It says it's live, but I don't think it is live, but we'll see. But I'm filming this for the edited video. I wasn't planning on filming this today, but I am. So in case anyone is watching this live. We've been going for 27 minutes so far. How cool is that? So, okay. So, watch that video because we put a huge load on his caravan with the same Scout battery. Okay, the Scout 280 amp 12 volt battery. We put a 370 amp load on it, discharge load, and the battery voltage dropped down to about 12.25, which is about the same what this one drops down to at 1550 watts. Now it took a 4500 watt load before Dan's battery dropped down to 12.2. That's 4,500 watts load before it dropped down. Repeat that again, 4,500 watts, guys, before it dropped down to 12.2 volts. This one only took 1,500 watts to drop it down to 12.2. So there's a big difference. Yeah, PowerPool's battery is a 280 amp capacity, but that shouldn't make any difference, guys. That shouldn't make the difference. It's all to do with the internals. How thick are the cables? How thick are the wires? What's the BMS that's installed? Etc. How good are the cells? Are the cells second-hand reconditioned? Are they just second-hand? Are they brand new? Are they prismatic cells? It all depends on that. Contrary to iTech World, where they do their best to hide what's inside their battery, Dan has no problem. Paul. I hope I didn't. Paul has no problems whatsoever in telling you what's exactly inside his batteries. In fact, if you go to PowerPool Australia Facebook page, it's the only way you can contact him too, by the way, guys. If you want to buy one of these batteries, the only way to purchase one is to go through Paul's Facebook page. So it's PowerPool Australia. If you do a search on that, you'll come up there and it'll be all the prices there. Now he's got two types of batteries he makes. He's got one that's called a Mercury that uses similar cells to what they use on the really high expensive Victron batteries, such as the 330 watt. Paul told me that the cells he's using in his 330 amp 12 volt Mercury battery is the same cells used in the Victron batteries worth $5,700 plus. Okay, so it's compared to that, whereas Paul's batteries are a lot cheaper than the Victron equivalent. But on top of that, remember, on top of that, with the Victron battery, it does not come with a BMS. And the BMS they recommend with that battery is worth $1,700. So, if you want a battery that's equivalent quality to the 330 amp, if you want a 330 amp battery, okay, for Victron, by the time you get by the battery, $5,700, add another $1,700 on top of that for the BMS. Whereas with PowerPole Australia, you can purchase pretty much the same battery, similar to the Victron one, for a much cheaper price. And it's manufactured here. Oh, I still have this left on. There you go. And it's manufactured here in Australia, down in Melbourne. So well worth checking out. So guys, thanks for watching this video. If you watched it right through the end, thank you very much. Now this is not the end of it. I'm going to be putting more tests on it. If I can find something that's got an 850 watt load, but better off, because I used to regularly run this, alright, and I still will. I will still, if I'm going somewhere camping and I'm not using power, then I will still take this, because this thing is brilliant for cooking your meat pies, sausage rolls, etc. It is awesome. It's so quick, it's so handy. There's no major washing up to do, and just brilliant. I mean, chuck some party pies in there, 20 minutes later they're cooked, even if they're frozen. Little sausage rolls, whack in there. Some chips, put some chips in there, 20-25 minutes later they're cooked. And it's only small, as you can see, but I tell you what, it still gives you a decent feed. It's big enough for me, and it's so compact. And this thing here, hang on, I'll unplug it and show you. This only cost me $50. This is what I've been putting to the test. It's only cost me $50, and I've owned this for over a year and never had a problem with it. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. For $50. How awesome is that? So guys, I'm getting really thirsty. I really need a drink. In fact, let's grab a drink. Today's choice of drink, once again, another one of these Bundaberg brewed drinks, sarsaparilla. Now, let's see if the cap opens. Oh, cool, awesome. I've got one that actually works. Guys, probably 2 out of every 4 or 5 I buy of these, you can't pull the caps off them. Excuse me while I sip this up. Oh, that's better. Oh boy. It's that time of the year where the weather goes stupid. It's cold at night, warm during the day. It's not too bad here. You might notice I've got my hat on. I tell you what, touch that, you can feel the warmth on there, but my head feels relatively cool. There's quite a fair bit of heat coming from up there. And tell you what, I'm glad I got this ostrich wing awning, because if I had any of the other awnings that don't have the same quality thick canvas on it, I don't think I'll be filming under this right now. It will be like a sauna under here. So guys, any questions, like always, ask, put a comment down below, and I will answer. Every question that's asked, I answer. I make an attempt. Sometimes it might take me a day or two before I get back to them, but generally I get back to the questions within a few hours. Sometimes instantly, if I'm happen to be on my laptop, or not laptop, if I happen to be on my tablet, my phone or computer, and a question pops up, I'll answer it straight away. Otherwise, it could be a day or two. So keep an eye out for more videos similar to this. This is going to be an ongoing continuation series on subjects similar to what we just filmed here today. So guys, any questions like I mean, comment down below. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Put a like on the video, it helps with the algorithm, which means that the more likes, the more comments you get, the more YouTube will share this video, the better off it is for me, and also the better off it is for you guys too, because then the more videos I can produce on different items, etc. and so on, because it all costs money. It all costs money, guys, to do all these tests and videos and so on. So till next time, look after yourself, be kind to everyone, and cheers. Bye. Whew. Okay guys, I think this is still live. You just saw how I filmed the video. Now, are we live? I've got a little icon here. I'm pointing right at it that says I'm live on YouTube. So, I was going to try to see if I can bring up a live feed of this. I'm really curious. So what did you think of that? Live catch up 1 hour ago. Are we live, guys? Oh shit, I closed the wrong thing. If we're live and anyone's got my phone message, you know, can you send me a message through Messenger or something? Alright, someone sent me a message here back in about an hour ago through Messenger. Dino, how are you? If you're watching this live, I think we are live on YouTube. Can you do a capacity test on your iTech World 120 lithium battery? Nope. The reason why, hang on, I'll tell you why. I will not do a capacity test on the lithium 120X battery. A lot of people have asked me to do it. Plenty of people out there have done capacity tests on it, and they all come out anywhere between 95 to 105 amps. Most of them 105 amps, but there are some that only get 95, and some way in between 95 to 105. So if you're asking that question because is it a 120 amp battery, it is not a 120 amp battery. These are not 120 amps. Okay? They are more so a 100 amp lithium battery. And that's what I set it up as. I got it set in the perimeters here as 100 amp. Actually 105. I will not do a capacity test because what happens when it's flat, the BMS will shut down. And from what I'm hearing, these are a pain in the rear end to get to boot back up again after a shutdown. I've had people ask me, send me messages in the past, even up until just a few days ago, Phil, my BMS on iTech World has shut down. How in the world do you boot these up again? I reply, I've got no idea. I heard it is very difficult to do, so I'll find a link to the iTech World site, send them to the link to the manual. It's all in the manual, but if you read it, oh my gosh. So I do not intend to stuff around and go through all that. Unless I have to. It happens accidentally. So far, it hasn't happened, and I intend to keep it that way. So, I'm not going to run a capacity test on it. I might one day, after I remove this from the vehicle for the testing that I'm going to do to compare against 2 other batteries. So, is anyone on here live? Can you send me a message if we're on live, please? It's telling me this is on live, but I don't see a live video. Let me go to a live streaming link. Guys, are we live? Can you tell me please, are we live? Someone send me a message. Are we actually live or not live? I don't know what's going on. I can't work it out. I don't think it's working. So, alright, we'll shut this down. No one send me a new message, so there's no point wasting time. Alright, see ya. Just in case you are. We'll shut this down now. Hang on, how do we shut this down?